All right. Now, before we start, I just want to make sure that you consent to having the entirety of this video recorded and posted publicly on YouTube.
Yeah, that's all fine with me.
Okay. And also, I want to make sure that everyone knows that, can you confirm that I did not give you these questions in advance?
You did not, no.
All right. And one last thing, can you confirm to me that all your responses in this interview are your own and that you have not consulted with anyone else regarding what you're going to say?
Confirm that, yes.
Okay, that's it. All right, let's get started then. All right, so first off, I'd like you to just introduce yourself and maybe also talk about why you want to be prefect.
Sure, yeah, no worries. So I'm Deano, Deano95 HD to be in full. Um, Prefect reasons. So I've been part of the community now since I think it was October of 2020. Year of the pandemic. Obviously got everyone stuck at home. Uh, Took up a bit more streaming, started doing Harry Potter runs, really grew into it. Started doing a lot more things in the last 12 months. So I've started doing moderating for HP1 and 2 initially. Since then, I've picked up HP4 and HP3 as well. Also, recently took over sort of heading up the Potathon project. And we're doing our first event this weekend, which I'm super excited for. So kind of that feat of progression, I suppose you could call it, along with just having an amazing time working with a lot of people with the community. Maybe I want to take that next step up really and try and incorporate especially some of my ideas, and also try and maintain a high level of what we could expect in the Harry Potter community.
All right, and how would you describe what it means to like maintain a high level in your own words?
Um, when I say maintain high level, I think what I would say is ensuring that there's a high level of respect between everybody. That there's no uh, negatives towards anybody. There's no the word I'm thinking of, but like for example, if someone says something that someone doesn't agree with, it doesn't devolve. That's not a word. Devolve into a massive argument which causes tension, and that kind of makes people feel uncomfortable because I want to create I'd like to be part of an inclusive city. Um, and also making sure that everything that we do is clear. Everyone's given a chance to voice any opinions, and make sure that when we make any kind of decision, that not a decision based upon a handful of people's opinions that take into account that the community is growing. So we need to make sure that we're making it a decision. We need that bigger heads there to and maintain that role a little bit to make sure that things are done in the proper way.
Gotcha. And you're actually the only one, I believe, in this election who isn't an incumbent. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you're going to be, if elected, the newest face of the prefect class or whatever you call it.
Yeah, yeah,
Are you nervous at all about the extra responsibility?
yeah. I think I'd be foolish not to be. I think it is a new area, so yeah, there's element of nerves there, but on the flip side, element of excitement that if I do get elected and people do want to see me be a prefect, that I can do it. So
All right. And so, in your opinion, you've been a community member for, like you said, over 2 years now. So
yeah,
that's a decent chunk of time. It's not as long as some people have been here for way longer.
yeah.
Do you feel that the length of time that you spend with the community has a big impact on your ability to lead that community? Like, in other words, if you're here for many, many, many years, does that automatically make you someone to look at for prefect? And likewise, like conversely, if you've only, let's say there was someone who'd only been here for a matter of months, do you think you would even consider voting for that person as prefect?
I think a lot of that depends on the person. So if you've been here for say 6 months, but you've been extremely active and you've very clearly engaged in supporting other people on the Discord, for example, if people want help, you've stepped up and you've said, just call, I'll help you out, I'll do whatever I need to. I think you have to look at that and think that that person is an active member that wants to support community. Flip side, someone who's been here for years and years and years. Um, if it's someone who focuses on their own runs, they're not really involved in the community, then you take that into consideration. It doesn't necessarily mean you say no. I think it's just about finding out how much they would put into the role and how much they would actually support other people, as well as obviously focusing on their own runs as well.
Got it. All right. So you would, in theory, if someone were to institute a rule that said, "Oh, there's a minimum time you have to be in the community before you're even eligible," would you be in favor of that rule?
I think it would depend on the period of time that was actually stated. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
if you say 6 months, for example, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But again, I would take it on a situation of we'll see who wants to do it. So if someone just says, I'd like to become a prefect, we judge it on that person and what they've done. And then we could even speak to them to try and make them see that they understand what that role means.
Gotcha. And so talking about the some of the work that you do for Podathon or other marathons, do you consider that the most important, or like is that your favorite or part of what you do as a moderator?
Uh, it is going really well. I am really enjoying doing the potathon stuff. Yeah, it's nice being able to put that creative side to things and coming up with ideas, putting them into action. Uh, so whenever we do a voice call and we're talking about organizing and how we're going to make things work, it does that fuel is there to make sure that everything is done in a way which is going to be entertaining. So everything that we've decided, my main focus is making sure not only is it good for the runners, good for the viewers, and it's good for Potathon in general. Um, Obviously, other side of it, done Wizengham up as well, like done moderating as well. Really enjoy doing that. I love seeing new runs pop up, like people I've never seen before. Did one earlier today. There was a brand new person. Their first ever run. It's nice to see new people doing runs.
Hmm.
I think that's something you've got to enjoy doing if you want to do something like that. You've got to be looking at ways of growing and have new people coming through, and you want to make it as smooth as possible for them to join the community, so they don't feel like they're they're an outsider.
Yeah, it makes sense. And about your time as Wizengamut, so for anyone who doesn't know, we call the speedrun.com moderator role is called Wizengamut because it's like thematic. Um, has there any been like have you ever had a decision that you really, had to make that you just didn't know what to do? And like what is your kind of process that you go through when something comes up that might be a contentious issue that needs solving?
Um, yes, I've had a couple of runs that I've looked at, and my knowledge of a trick is fairly substantial. But then there's something that happens which you don't know if it is technically, like, for example, glitchless, for example. You don't know if something is necessarily a glitch. Um, I'll give an example. Obviously, I won't name any names. But we had a situation with a run where someone had triggered what we would normally deem a multitask, HP1. But the situation was the rule stated that it had to have deloaded a cutscene, but this didn't deload the cutscene because they triggered the cutscene already. So that was kind of a moment of don't know what to do with this because technically, yes, they've triggered something with something other than Harry, but they haven't technically broken the rule that's in the rules. What do we do about this? So I put my opinion forward, and then other people put theirs, and we kind of put it to a vote, and then we've dated it to make it a bit more clear. So we've made a change on that to make sure that the rules are a bit more clear in case of that ever happens again.
Gotcha. It's really funny because you're actually not the only one who's brought that up during these series of interviews. There was someone else who also talked about that same incident unprompted. So yeah, it's good to know that people are thinking about these things carefully and considering all the angles and potential abuses and you know in making any given decision. And do you ever feel like in those cases where something comes up that no one's quite sure how to deal with, that it would you ever consider actually reaching out to just a member of the people in the Discord who aren't in a position of power for their input?
Yeah, I definitely would. If it came to a point when none of us were really clear on what it is, obviously that's something that we need to sort out. And if we don't have a clear decision, then that's when we open it up and say to people, "What do we think about this?" Uh, well, I think what I would do with the footage is I would just show it. I wouldn't actually say what it was for. So we're not saying we don't know how to moderate this, but we would just say we just need clarification on would people consider this? Like if this happened to you in a run, what would your reaction be? Would you say no, I know I've done a glitch, or don't know, and see how people gauge and have a discussion because we have channels to discuss rules for a reason.
Right.
It's not just within the people that have the power for everybody to voice their opinion.
Gotcha. So if there ever, let's think, speaking generally, if there was a decision that needed to be made, maybe it wasn't even about a trick in a run, maybe it was something
Yeah.
completely different, and Wisdom Gamut had come to an agreement. Uh, if so, like that, I guess I can give a concrete, a made-up example. If there was, I guess that example works fine. If there's someone, well, like a glitchless is so subjective sometimes, especially HP1 and glitchless. I kind of want to think, what's a better a way of talking about it. Like let's say, people uh, wanted a certain rule to be, put in place. So, there's a discussion in Wisdom Gamut, and then they come to an agreement, and then after coming to an agreement, what would happen is if you found out that there was strong community backlash, would you reverse the decision? Like what would that process be?
Uh, I think I mean if there's backlash to a decision which is uh, warranted and has merit, I think it's definitely worth having a discussion with everybody. I think we've done that in the past. I think the most prominent one I think I can remember was Spongify storage.
Yep.
I think that in HP2, like that was quite a contentious one. I think when it came down to vote, it was very, very even. But look at how democracy of majority does win. Um, so I think that's how I would go about it. Is I'd say like, okay, we've made a decision. It's clear that everyone feels very differently, so we should open it up and see if we can find either some kind of compromise to whatever the situation is, or find a way of making it work where it's fair.
Gotcha. And do you feel like we reached the correct decision on that one?
Quantify storage,
Yeah, that
yes,
specific incident.
yeah, I
Interesting.
think we did. Yeah, I voted to allow it, and
Okay.
I still like that today. Although I feel like at the time it was because I had so many runs invalidated because
Yeah, that was a
yeah,
common reason.
yeah,
I do feel
but
like that was a really common reason why people voted to allow it, because
yeah,
otherwise their runs would all be
yeah,
invalid.
but then since then, obviously, because I mean that back then, I mean that it was made I think within a year of me being in the community, so that was still my core reasoning. I think if we had that vote again, like now, I still feel that the game has put that in. I don't think that's
Yeah, I voted this. I, for the record, voted the same way as you. I
yeah,
was one of the people who said that. Um, this is just some background knowledge, but I think my stance was that like it's too hard to avoid, and
yeah,
it's like even if you say it's a glitch, it's like you can't trying to ban every glitch will make the game unplayable. So there
yeah. I
has to
say
be a
like
compromise, you
yeah,
know.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
like the compromise there was obviously if it happens, then it happens. Like you don't get that much advantage from it really, and
Yeah.
if I and I don't think there's anywhere really you can properly abuse it. Uh,
It saves like a second in the whole run.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like if you abuse it, it's because you've done something wrong, and you're gonna lose time anyway. So there's no real negatives to allowing it because most you'll lose is maybe half a health bar, and there's probably a frog around the corner that would heal it anyway.
Right. So with stuff like that, when you have a decision that's really close like that, do you think there's any value? Like, do you think it breeds resentment when you have a close majority, just like when you have a slim majority and you enforce the majority rule?
Uh, yeah, I think a lot of people would. I think that depends on what it is. Well, but
True.
if we look at Spotify storage, for example, I don't think the people that voted to it banned would have minded too much that it was allowed because it still mean their runs were fine anyway. Obviously, personal opinions on that particular rule. I understand why it was contentious because it had been part of the rules for. I imagine it had been part of the rules for a long time before I joined the community. So I don't know when it was actually like found out that it was like thing. I don't know. A bit before I joined. Um, but I think a contentious decision where it's really really close, depending on what it is, could warrant a further discussion. Particularly if people haven't voiced their opinions yet at the time of the vote, or haven't maybe had all the facts, had all the information yet.
Actually, speaking of not having all the facts, there was, I think this was before you joined, but there was a rule change that I think I was the main proponent of several years back, and there was a vote that was set to happen, and then new information came out, and then the vote was actually canceled because of that. They
Okay.
said the prefects said new info. It was like a few days away. I think they basically said, there's been so much back and forth around this issue that we're gonna put it to a vote, and then we're gonna stick with that. And then I did more research into the issue and came and released new information because that's what you do when you have information. You tell people about
Yeah.
it. And they actually said, okay, we're canceling. No more vote. We need to reassess. Do you think that is the correct way to handle something like that, or do you say, we'll have the vote, and then if we need to have another one, we can. Like, how do you handle something like that? Where, like, let's say someone found out that, oh, Spongify storage actually, like, there's a vote on it, and then someone goes, wait, guys, I just found a strat. You can save like a whole minute with it. Like, do you think in that situation do you postpone the voting? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I think you postpone it to look into how exactly you saved that minute. So is there anything there that would be deemed against what the rules of glitchless word I'm thinking of, which I can't think of. It's like morals, but it's not morals. I think you get the sense of what I'm thinking of. Against the principles of glitchless, almost.
Mm-hmm.
For example, um, but if, for example, that saving a minute was something incredibly insane, which is exciting, then I think it would be a case of potentially postponing the vote, having a discussion, and say, what do people think about it? Is it like if we were to allow it and allow this skip to a precedent, would it generate interest in the category? I think that's something else we always need to consider. We want to keep things active. We want to keep people running games, and I think HP2 glitchless is one of the most categories we have. But um, yeah, we want to keep people interested in finding new strats. Is always a good way of doing it, and that involves a discussion about a potential rule.
All right, coming to the end here, I just want like one or two more things I wanted to ask. So follow up to that, if you feel like a new trick was found that didn't violate any rules but made the run less interesting, would you vote to ban it?
No, I I I feel like whether a run being interesting, yeah, it's always good. But if we're not violating any rules, then I don't see any merit to ban it. Because if we did that, then we wouldn't have runs like 1 GBA and 5 GBA, like, or even things like HP2, PS2, any percent.
Mm-hmm.
I think like if we'd have said, "Oh, End Day Escape, it makes the game completely boring," we're gonna ban it. But then we're breaking a really big trick that has made Hundo even better. So it's like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's like at the end of the day. when it comes to a speed run, if we find things that are going to enable us to finish a game quickly, I think that the core mechanic that we are trying, we have found a really, really cool strat that, yes, the run might become less interesting, but it is a very cool speedrun strat which can be incorporated into other categories. Then I wouldn't ban it.
Gotcha. Because
Unless it was like say for example loading a debug menu, something like that. That's a little bit different.
something
Yes.
that could potentially so what you're saying is like if it was a questionable trick, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so like for example, I think we found out like 2 GBA debug where you can trigger the debug menu by going into that little shed and you can then load into the basilisk layer. Like
Right. That's clearly
yeah,
against the spirit of the run,
yeah, that's the word of the spirit. I couldn't think of that
Yeah.
word earlier. But yeah, that's against the spirit of that category, and that's why like if that happens, like and you want to make it a category extension like we did with 2GBA, that's great. That's great because that's where category extensions are. That's why they're there. So you can have little cool runs like that where a trick that you wouldn't normally use in any percent can be used. And it gives you that chance to still run it, but doesn't take away the spirit of the speedrun.
All right. Um, that's all the questions I had for you today. Any closing remarks? Anything you want to say to the people watching before we end it?
Well, thank you for the chance. Wasn't something I expected to come up on the back of the application, but
All right.
it was fun. It was really fun to talk about things like that, and I hope people do vote for me to be a prefect. I would really enjoy the opportunity, and I do think that I can make a good prefect. So yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you for deciding to come on this program. It was a little, like you said, out of nowhere. I just had the idea, so I thought it
Good,
would be
good
fun to
idea.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like it. I look forward to seeing what other people said as well.
absolutely. All right, and best of luck in your election efforts.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care.